This is wild. Apparently, almost 70% less people played the campaign of The Edge of Fate compared to the final shape. And if you're thinking, well, Lucky, we already covered the data and we know that there's less players, so of course there's going to be less campaign completions. Like, this is a stupid story, right? Well, it goes deeper than that because we actually have data not only on the amount of people that completed the campaign, but the amount of completions by percentage. So we'll get to that in just a moment, but let's go ahead and start from the beginning here. Data shows Destiny 2 Edge of Fate campaign completions down nearly 70% compared to the final shape. Now, let's jump into it. New data shows Destiny 2's campaign are down 70%. Destiny 2's latest expansion, The Edge of Fate, landed on July 15th, 2025, kicking off what Bungie calls the brand new Fate saga. After the epic conclusion to the Light and Darkness saga last year, Edge of Fate introduces a fresh start for the game. This expansion is also packed with game-wide major updates. There's a total rework of the armor system, the portal, a new gear tiering system, and more. Alongside the new story and systems, Edge of Fate marks the beginning of a new content delivery cadence for Destiny 2's future expansions. So if you don't know, instead of doing one big annual expansion, they're kind of breaking it down into 2 6-month expansions. So that way it doesn't feel like there's such a dry time between start to finish every single year, right? During the usual calendar year, we have a good amount of stuff happening and it kind of fizzles out quite a bit. And it finishes towards the end of the year with everything being so dry. Like the last month or two, there ain't much to do. So Bungie wanted to remedy that by turning it into 2 smaller sized 6-month expansions. All right, so every year they're now doing 2 smaller Rise of Iron sized expansions every year. Still, as many expected, Edge of Fate reportedly started off with significantly fewer pre-orders compared to last year's The Final Shape, which brought a decade-long story to a close. Now, a new player analysis is giving us an even clearer picture of what's happening. It turns out that not only are pre-orders way down, but the number of players actually finishing the Edge of Fate campaign is also down. Now, could this in part be due to Matterspark and its visual glitches, and really just a lot of people having a lot of contempt for Matterspark? They thought that, turning into a little ball and rolling around on the ground is not nearly as interesting as the gunplay that Destiny 2 offers, which is literally its selling point and has been for many, many years now. And it is just about a third of what the Final Shape saw in its first week. So we're at about a third of the completions of the campaign compared to the Final Shape, which obviously the Final Shape put up big numbers, and the Edge of Fate is doing quite the opposite. And the reason why we're highlighting this is not necessarily to be so overtly negative, but just to give you the data so that way you can make a decision on how you feel with the situation. Because a lot of people said that, well, even though the pre-order numbers are down for Edge of Fate, a lot of those players will still come back, right? When they hear about the new campaign, when they hear about the new story, the new saga, a lot of those players will come back. Maybe we'll see a resurge in players. But instead, what we have seen is the exact pattern of population patterns happen, but with about a third the population. So we've lost a ton of players after the Final Shape. A lot of people cleared Final Shape. They killed the Witness, and they said, I am literally out of here. That was it for them. New report highlights Edge of Fate's low campaign engagement. The analysis was done by a Destiny 2 player on Reddit, Testify, the same user who did the pre-order number analysis. This guy's all about it. This guy has a great reputation for going through the data and meticulously detailing everything that's happening. Similar to the previous analysis, Testify looked at stats from warmind.io, which tracks how many players unlock in-game triumphs and milestone achievements. The way it works is pretty straightforward. They count how many players completed specific campaign triumphs within the first week after launch. By looking at these numbers for both Edge of Fate and the Final Shape, Testify was able to lay out a clear side-by-side comparison of just how many players are actually reaching the end of these new campaigns. So there's 2 different elements to this, right? Which is how many people are playing the Edge of Fate, and then how many people are starting the campaign, and how many people are actually finishing the full campaign. Because finishing the full campaign is indicative of a successful campaign, meaning that the story was interesting, it kept you compelled enough to start it and go to completion, like finish the actual story. But if it wasn't, then you're going to quit around the halfway mark, And that is very indicative of a bad story and a bad campaign. And I've already given my thoughts and criticisms of the campaign. I did actually, myself, I liked it. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was the worst story ever, but some others, and quite a few others actually, weren't a fan of it. So let's go on to the next part. This is not comparing today's Edge of Fate numbers to all-time The Final Shape numbers. This is an important point. It's a direct comparison to the Final Shape campaign completions at the same point in time after release. So how many completions were there at the time 2 weeks after release comparing the Final Shape to the Edge of Fate? This is only possible by tracking the counts every day since that time. So for the analysis, these are the exact triumphs that were tracked. The Final Shape, normal campaign, Fellowship. Epilogue, Lighting the Future. Legendary campaign, The Final Shape, Legendary. Echoes, Start Free, Unknown Horizons. Act 1, Nessian Echoes. Act 2, Quantified Impact. Act 3, A New Golden Age. Revenant, Not Lifeless, Elixir Rescuer, Grave Protector, Hell's Kells, and Heresy, Echoed Warnings, Rites of the Deep, and Crossed Blades. And then we have Edge of Fate, New Beginnings, At Fate's Edge, and Legend Forged. So these are the different triumphs, I believe, that you get from all this. So they tracked the completions of both the normal and legendary campaigns, measuring how many players got to the finish line in that all-important first week. This approach doesn't catch every single player, but it's a solid way to get a snapshot of real engagement. Here's what the numbers show. According to the data shared in Edge of Fate's first week, about 408,000 players finished the campaign. Very interesting. So when we talk a little bit about the population charts, remember that we're talking about Steam because console doesn't give us the same transparency that PC does. So you get a big picture of just how many players there are on console, right? Console is literally the lifeblood of Destiny 2 at this point in time because we had 100,000 players at peak on PC, and we had over 400,000 players complete the campaign in the first week. So a good majority of them are those console players. By comparison, the Final Shape saw over 1.3 million completions in the same time frame. That's a drop of nearly 70%. So after the first week, there were 1.3 million Guardians that completed the campaign in Final Shape. Edge of Fate, 408,000. So significantly less, a 70% drop overall, which the numbers of that do relatively add up to the lower population, which is very indicative of Destiny 2. I'm not going to say dying. Like, I feel like saying Destiny 2 is dying is almost like a meme at this point, but it's just indicative of Destiny 2 really struggling for retention and really struggling to acquire new players and keep a healthy population, which is something you don't want to hear from your flagship game if you're Bungie, and something you don't really want to hear if you really like playing Destiny 2. Like, I want Destiny 2 to thrive. I want Destiny 2 to do well, but unfortunately, we're seeing a massive decline. And because of this massive decline, we really want to deliver this news to you, let you know what's going on, and hope and pray that Sony steps in here, really saves this franchise before it truly goes belly up, right? The Final Shape had 1.315 finished normal campaign, 1.2 million completed the epilogue, and 943,000 completed on legendary campaign. Nice. Echoes had start 1.2 million, 848, 558, 282. Revenant 1.2, 700, 473, and Act 3 had 201,000. And Heresy had 412, 310, and 251. For Edge of Fate, start is free, had 1 million. The normal campaign dropped down to 400,000 for completions, and legendary campaign 338,000 for completions. Out of the tracked pre-orders for Edge of Fate, only about half actually finished the campaign in the first week. 408,000 completions out of 806,000 pre-orders, which comes to about 51%. So when we talk about the pre-orders to completions of the campaign, it's an important thing to distinct, because people playing the campaign and finishing it, like I said, is a very good indicator that the campaign was good and that people are vibing with the game and that the game is trending upwards, if that makes sense, right? So even if it's less, that's fine if it's less, because the population is less. We're expecting it to be less, right? We're not sitting out here making up crazy stories. But if the percentage of people that purchased it was higher, then that means that the population is less, but the people that are playing are really enjoying the game. But the data shows the opposite. The Final Shape, the numbers were a lot higher. About 69% of people who pre-ordered made it to the end of the campaign in the same time frame. So we have about 51% of people actually completing the campaign compared to 69% of the people. So basically, a lot of people who did buy Edge of Fate even though it was a significantly smaller portion, they logged in, they started to play the campaign, they ran around on the ground with Matterspark, and they said, nah, they put it down and got rid of it altogether, which is wild, right? This nearly 70% drop in campaign completions really shouldn't be a surprise when you look at how much lower the total pre-orders were for Edge of Fate. After the huge finale that was the final shape, it's only natural that fewer players would jump in right away for a new saga, of course, which I actually have some criticism of that, because it's natural that players might end with the Edge of Fate, but you should create such a new and compelling narrative that players want to come back, and new players should want to jump in, because this is meant to be a re-entry point, right? Or just an entry point in general, like a new story, a new saga, a new narrative. That should mean new players. You know, if anything, this should be the biggest and most exciting time. I feel like we kind of structured everything the wrong way, where we invested everything into the end of the saga, and we put all our stat points in this, right? And we didn't fully develop the skill tree for the new saga, all right? We invested all the budget in the final shape, and now we launched the Edge of Fate with the B team, you know, and it's no good. We really needed to start off with a big success, because now we're at a deficit. We're at a massive deficit. Bungie is in a tremendous financial deficit right now. They are very much in the red when it comes to money and investment return in Destiny 2. And it is alarming for them. I don't think that anyone saw it being this much of a drop. Like, this is an amount of money loss that will definitely shake them up big time right now. But what really stands out is the fact that even among those who pre-ordered, far fewer are actually finishing the story compared to the final shape. A much smaller percentage of Edge of Fate pre-orders players are making it to the end of the campaign in the first week. Like we mentioned before, it's about 50% compared to 70%. Okay, so you have 51% pre-orders, 69% the final shape. After 1 week of release, the analysis reads, this is a very large drop year over year, and might be due to either the Edge of Fate campaign being a bit slower or more meandering than the final shape, or players in Edge of Fate choosing to play less of the campaign, slowing down or stopping midway. So there is some element of that maybe the campaign is being played differently than the final shape, but it really shouldn't be that way. It should be very comparable, or like I said before, we should be starting off a new saga and the story should be so much more compelling. We should see, instead of 69%, we should see like 80, 90% completion. We should have such a good story launching, since the narrative drives the game in such a big way. Like, obviously the gunplay is what sells people in Destiny 2, the loot is what keeps them coming back, but the story is driving where we're going, and the story has become significantly more impactful and meaningful, especially in these later years. You look at Echoes, Revenant, and Heresy, like, the story has become a much bigger cornerstone to Destiny 2, and Bungie has been working really hard with some really talented people, actually, to make some really good stories. Especially when you look back at some of the previous seasons and stories in Destiny 2, the stories are getting a lot better. And so we would hope that they could launch the Edge of Fate, have a really good story, like one that really draws people in. It doesn't seem to be doing that, you know, and it's unfortunate, because I even played the story. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was the most compelling, interesting story ever, but I thought it was good. Like, I thought it was an okay story, and I had fun playing it in general, but apparently a lot of you didn't, you know, and I made a video talking about that, and a lot of people even criticized me in the comments of that video, saying, you know, I don't agree with you at all, Lucky. I did not enjoy the story. I think that it was not nearly as good as something like the Red War campaign, where Gaul comes down and literally blows the shit up out of our tower and throws a freaking giant trap on top of the Traveler, and then he literally comes into the tower and kicks us off the edge, right? And that takes away our power, and we have to build our way up, right? Like, that was a really crazy story if you think about it in comparison. Like, the Red War campaign was incredible. It made you really hate that character and really want that revenge, and you wanted to, you know, build yourself back up after that. Even though we were frustrated about losing all of our loot from D1 and things like that, the story was compelling. The Red War campaign was goated. It was an incredible campaign. No one can say otherwise. Now, for the Edge of Fate, we don't get that same feeling, right? And obviously you can't just take the same story, copy and paste it or anything like that, but you really want something that's going to make you feel, right? Right now we have Kepler, which is this planet that we didn't even know about, and I guess we have to save it. And we're like, we didn't even know it was out there until recently. What are the implications if we don't save it? Like, I don't know. I'm struggling to really connect the dots here about why I should care so much. You know, when it was Gaul, it was like our home, and he was literally physically beating the shit out of us, you know? Like, it was awesome. Like, we wanted to get that guy. We wanted to kill that guy. And with this, it doesn't have that same visceral, emotional response. And I think you really need that if you want to sell people on a new story, a new narrative. This narrative is more mysterious. It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion. There's some intrigue there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not uninterested in the 9 by any means, but I wish that there was a little more, you know, there was a little more to the story, I suppose. So it's worth remembering that this isn't an official Bungie report, so while the numbers are coming directly from the official API, take it with a grain of salt. As for why the numbers are low, there are a few reasons this might be happening. For one, the final shape was marketed as a major finale, a perfect point for many to jump back in or say goodbye to Destiny 2. Edge of Fate, on the other hand, is the start of a brand new multi-year storyline. What do you think? Is Destiny 2 losing its wider audience? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. So, what I think, and feel free to sound off with your opinions as well, Destiny 2 launched this whole new saga, and it's not resonating as strongly as Bungie would have liked. It's a weird time for us. Obviously, we have Renegades coming around the corner. Will Renegades build up the audience with the sort of Star Wars-themed expansion during that time? Only time will tell. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the big breadwinner necessarily. I know that a lot of people will enjoy those cosmetics and could be a fun story and could, you know, push the Fate saga, the 9 narrative further. And I'm interested in seeing where things go overall. I just wish that I was really compelled to play because the narrative was really interesting to me. I'm just not quite there. It's more mysterious and intriguing than it has a real emotional response, but that's my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.